Evelyn's Law went into effect on July 1st of 2021. It increases penalties for parents who won't report their children as missing soon enough or if they give misleading information to authorities.
Evelyn's Law was passed in 2021. The TBI has seen an increase in endangered child alerts. In 2022, 43 endangered child alerts were issued, but in 2024, there were 50. The TBI issues these alerts at the request of local agencies. Director of Organizational Advancement at Child Help Tennessee says every single hour is critical.
A heartbreaking occurrence of a missing toddler that hadn't been seen in months.
We need to create some kind of a mechanism so that this won't occur again.
Evelyn Boswell's Law charges parents with a misdemeanor if their child goes missing and they don't report it to authorities within 24 hours.
We wrote the bill that way really to have a mechanism for law enforcement, if needed, to bring a parent in. So rather than voluntarily, will you talk to me? No. Okay, well, now we can take you into custody and force you to talk to us. That was the most important thing, to start that dialogue.
A person who falsely accuses a parent of failing to report a missing child in a timely manner could be charged with making a false report as well.
It was a more powerful statement, put more teeth in the bill.
It's not just prosecuting people after they have committed a crime, it's understanding the risks of those crimes being committed in the first place.
The law hopefully saving other families and communities from grief.
How do you make sense of this and say why? I don't know if it's some solace to say, here's a little bit. So because she didn't have time to make an impact on the world like most of us would expect and want, but she has a legacy that is there.
Well, Megan Boswell is charged in the death of her daughter, Evelyn. She's facing premeditated first-degree murder charges, but the state is not seeking the death penalty. The toddler disappeared back in December of 2019, but was not reported missing for 2 months. Her remains were finally found in March of 2020 inside a trash bag at the house of one of Megan Boswell's family members.
Family members first reported the 15-month-old missing in February 2020. Her grandfather said he'd last seen her 2 months before, in December. A fruitless 2-week search for her started on the 19th when the TBI launched an Amber Alert. The alert listed a gray BMW as carrying suspects linked to the case. Authorities found the car and arrested Evelyn's grandmother, Angela, with her boyfriend. Megan Boswell, Evelyn's 18-year-old mother, spoke with our sister station, WCYB.
The reason I didn't report it or anything is because I knew the person who had her, and I didn't want them to run away with her. And as soon as they thought anything was going on, they just kind of vanished.
TBI said Boswell claimed her mother had given Evelyn to an unknown person, saying she was safe and would have a better life. On the 25th, another story. She told investigators Evelyn died when she or her boyfriend rolled over on her in bed. She said she didn't know where her child's body was. Police arrested Megan Boswell and charged her with false reporting. Human remains had been found on a Boswell family member's property. Investigators later revealed they'd found diapers and toys around the body with the same clothes Evelyn had on when she was reported missing.
Dr. Malusnik, at the request of the district attorney's office here in Sullivan County, did you review an autopsy as well as other case materials involving the death of Evelyn Boswell?
Yes.
And if you would, tell us what materials you reviewed.
So I reviewed everything that was available when I was approached to originally look at the case, and I can list all the entries that I compiled in my report.
And these materials, are they typical of what you would normally review in preparing an autopsy?
Yes.
Based upon your review of those materials, did you form an opinion as to the cause and manner of death of Evelyn Boswell?
Yes. My opinion was that Evelyn died of asphyxial death and that the manner of death was homicide.
All right. And again, you reviewed the autopsy that had been done by Dr. Schmidt. How, if anything, did your opinion differ from what she had concluded?
In essence, actually, our opinion did not really differ much, except that in my report, I specify several different ways of asphyxial death or different mechanisms of it.
And when you say different mechanisms of asphyxia, what are you talking about? Can you explain that to the jury a little bit?
So asphyxia essentially means that the inability of a person to breathe or for the oxygen to be supplied to the cells in the body. And the different ways how that can occur is either by preventing the circulation to the brain or other organs and tissues in the body, or preventing the breathing, or putting a person in such a position that essentially compromises both circulation and breathing at the same time, with the end result of essentially depriving the tissues and organs of oxygen. With that respect, actual asphyxial death in general are very complex deaths, and if there is any compromise in the integrity of the person, such as decomposition, then they have to be really described in such a manner, these mechanisms, that are understandable, because in the end, the asphyxial death is the what we call diagnosis of exclusion, meaning when everything else is excluded, what we are left with essentially is that the findings in the body and the finding of the body within the scene that are going to come to essentially explain what really happened to an individual. What I'm essentially saying is that there's the mechanism, asphyxial mechanism such as positional, mechanical, traumatic, or actually can be a consequence of the positioning in the scene, and that information comes strictly from the scene investigation.
That after an extensive and thorough investigation, other individuals were eliminated as suspects, and Megan Boswell became the sole suspect in this case.
Authorities charged Boswell with felony murder, aggravated child abuse, aggravated child neglect, tampering with evidence, and abuse of a corpse. Last year, they added a premeditated murder charge to the list.
The jury are being brought in, and while we won't hear the reading of the verdict, we're going to try to look at Megan Boswell here closely and see if her body language tells us anything. Megan Boswell is guilty of first-degree murder. Oh boy, and you can see a reaction there, couldn't you? Even if we know that, just her body language, her response, looked like her mouth opened up, and then she started covering her face.
In count 2, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of first-degree murder and the perpetration of a felony, is a judgment of this court you are guilty.
Guilty of that top count of first-degree murder. That was the biggie. And that's the one that could imprison her for the rest of her life. The jury is going to be making a recommendation on this. After they get done with the reading of the verdict, the court will proceed directly into the sentencing phase.
The first-degree murder and the perpetration of a felony, it's a judgment of this court you are guilty. In count 4, a judgment of your peers having found you guilty of aggravated child abuse, is a judgment of the court you are guilty. In count 5, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of aggravated child neglect, it's a judgment of the court you are guilty. In count 6, the jury of your peers having found you guilty of tampering with evidence, it's a judgment of the court you are guilty. Count 7, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of false report, it's a judgment of the court you are guilty. And count 20, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of failure to report a death under suspicious, unusual, or unnatural circumstances, it's a judgment of the court you are guilty. Counts 4 through 20.
Guilty on all counts. That is the verdict from the jury in the case against defendant Megan Boswell. And there she is crying as she's being led out by a sheriff's deputy to go to the holding area in the courthouse. Megan Boswell, now a convicted killer. And today, very swiftly, she will learn her punishment for the murder of baby Evelyn. Guilty on count number 2. Guilty of first-degree murder and guilty of felony murder. Guilty of count number 3 as well. Aggravated child abuse. These are the biggies, folks. These top counts are the big ones. First-degree premeditated murder, first-degree murder, and perpetration of a felony, the felony being aggravated child abuse. Megan Boswell committing a heinous crime in the murder of her beautiful baby Evelyn. The next one is tampering with evidence. She's guilty of that as well, because we know she didn't just commit this crime, she tried to cover it up. The jury has found her guilty of that. The killing of her baby Evelyn, who was asphyxiated. Homicidal violence was how baby Evelyn was taken from this earth at just 15 months of age.
Madam Foreperson, did the jury come to a unanimous decision for sentencing on counts 1, 2, and 3?
Yes, Your Honor.
If you would deliver the verdict for count 1.
We, the jury, unanimously agree that the defendant shall be sentenced to imprisonment for life.
And if that is each individual juror's verdict, please raise your right hand. Let the record reflect each juror raise their right hand. At this time, I propose that we release the jury from this case. Count 1, the jury of your peers having set your punishment, you'll be sentenced to life imprisonment. In count 2, you'll be sentenced to life imprisonment. In count 3, you'll be sentenced to life imprisonment. We'll have to set this for sentencing hearing where we'll deal with merger, other issues, as well as sentencing in counts 4 through 20. Sentencing in this case for May the 23rd.
Yes, sir, I'll be here.